Well, everybody, welcome to the end of January and another Conspiracy Keepers. What, we're going to use Jackie today?
Yeah.
Okay.
Cool.
Just making sure. We have Jackie here with us. In our chairs, Joe Monaco and Scooter McGee. Good afternoon, you guys.
Afternoon.
Hey guys,
Been a
Good
couple of crazy weeks.
afternoon, Hellebuck.
always good to see you. Always good to be here and talk
I
about what's
see
going
almost
on.
everybody. Backlash, throw a mugshot up on your profile so I got something to stare at.
Yeah, at some point I will.
Good.
Just not
How is
today.
everybody?
It's just
Not
not
today.
today. Yeah. And it's good. I'd rather be seen than viewed. So it is midday.
Okay, fair enough.
No, we could always light lights behind you, and do the old profile thing that they used to do, like when UFO guys would come out and they
That's
were afraid to
right.
talk. They'd have their voice.
Yeah, right.
Good.
And
Well, I was
speaking of
thinking-
views, Joe, where do they find us?
They can find us at conspiracykeepers.com, which is where all our videos are. You can get it on YouTube, but we want you to go to our website because that's kind of where we are, and that's where all our stuff is and organized and everything week by week. Or I should say, you can go to theconspiracyzone.net. There's like tons of articles. I've got over 100 articles there over about a decade. So we're talking about pretty much all the stuff that we talk about and kind of summarized for you, really, in just a caption to where everybody can read it. So it's really cool.
Jackie, where can they find you?
I don't even have a name on this radio station. I don't know. I'm Jackie.Selby on Instagram.
All right.
Excellent.
So the Scooter McGee, because I mentioned that on Twitter like a month ago and I forgot to tell you about this. Guys, I got an email.
Uh-oh.
Looks like it's from Google.
Well, that forwards to my DJ Scooter McGee account.
Gotcha.
The blanket one. And so the guy's name is Mike. He wants to he sent us an email regarding who should be the patron saint of the Conspiracy Keepers. So we can talk about that off air.
All right.
At the Scooter McGee on Twitter, or you can hashtag Scooterdamus, SCOOTERDAMMUS. All right, so where do we want to start? We got a lot to cover at the end of January.
Okay, here's what's bugging me is Neil Young getting spun up into the media wheel and wanting to take his stuff down off of Spotify because he doesn't like Joe Rogan. Well, I think he said that not knowing that Joe Rogan is the little darling of Spotify.
Mm-hmm.
And also, who cares about Neil Young's music on Spotify? I mean, I have a classic list playlist on Spotify, and that's, he's one of the artists that comes up on my playlist, but I'm
What
not a
song?
Well, it chooses.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And I like Heart of Gold and stuff like that. And my, departed husband, he loved Neil Young. But I don't know. So what?
Mm-hmm. Right. Well, the thing
I think
about
it was kind of a party
go ahead.
play. It was just kind of a party play, oh God, if he's on there, he's saying misinformation about the jab. I don't think that Neil Young has listened to one of Joe Rogan's podcasts.
Yeah, and the interesting thing about Neil Young is he was one of the, speaking out back in the 60s with the Vietnam War. He wanted his voice heard. He was fighting all this stuff. And yeah, he wanted his voice heard. And all of a sudden now he doesn't about face. Now, if he doesn't like something, then we got to get rid of him. So it's kind of pretty inconsistent about what his stand is on this.
Very interesting.
It is very interesting.
I see it differently as the business model. If you go woke, you go broke. And there are those, the other term I'm really not digging on is these, the grifters. That's a whole nother homogenization and synonymization of a word that doesn't belong, because it's an in your face con versus a grift. A true grift is different. But the reality of Neil Young is he has in the past, as other artists have, argued about Spotify and the low rate quality that they talk about. Well, when we're doing this podcasting stuff, which is the big explosion of, hey, we got Joe Rogan and we want all these other podcasts. Well, we're not recording the way that they recorded music back then, and then high fidelity and quadraphonic, and all of the different jumps in broadcasting music technology that groups like everyone from, what was the folk, I want to say Sidney and Marty Krofft, but it's not.
That's HR Puffin stuff. Fame.
Where Young came out of the folk band, then getting into rock.
Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young.
Crosby, Stills, Nash. Thank you. That group and Young, and then him. But then the other artists of the era, like Pink Floyd, or Led Zeppelin, or the Rolling Stones, and from the Beatles, Elvis. That all of them capturing that sound. So when you are a true audiophile and you want to hear that sound, you want it in the original way it was recorded, and you want to listen to it in a wave format. Now, fast forward back in time, Napster, Kazaa, MP3 was a hack to take a wave file and crack it and get it into a small size so you could share it. And it sounded pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
But now jump ahead. So like the 80s retro dance party in nightclubs, the minute you walk into a nightclub, you can tell if that's an MP3 or if that's a CD. And if that's an MP3, get it out of the player, because you're picking up the sound system. Stop it. So back to Neil Young. He, as others, have repeatedly complained about Spotify's bit rate. So he can't now, since he's already done it on Twitter before, complaining about it. Now he jumps on because you're letting Trump, so I don't want Trump, and I don't know. Well, now it's Joe Rogan. This is the latest straw man. I also think this was a beta test because, and then the other is, Neil Young didn't legally have the right to post what he posted, because he, along with all these other Hollywood and music and art and theater and all of them, they're selling their libraries for ridiculous amounts of money to get the hell out of the country, live on a yacht or live on an island, because they know that the economy is imploding. So he puts the tweet up and he says, I want my library. Well, it's not your library to dictate. You sold half the rights to it already.
Did he?
Yeah, the media kind of forgets to cover that. So then claiming because it's Joe Rogan, no. I also think this was like the Raptors testing the fence at Jurassic Park, because the immediate joke was, Joe Rogan has 200 million views a month and you got 4. So how many people now need to gang up on Joe instead of 1?
Mm-hmm.
And yet in the same 24-hour launch window that Spotify announced, we are removing, John, per his request, goodbye, Neil, can't miss you till you're gone. 42 more episodes of the Joe Rogan Experience have disappeared from Spotify. So again, give a mouse a cookie and they'll want a glass of milk.
Well, yeah, and plus a lot of these feuds, these public feuds, and I'm not saying that what I'm going to say is what this is, but we also got to keep something in mind. They're not real feuds. You know, when we saw this with the last election, you know, the Clintons and the Trumps are supposedly hate each other and they want each other put in jail, but they've been friends. They've been friends for a long time. They play golf together. Hillary Clinton was at his inauguration and he led the applause for her. So they're actually on the same side. A lot of these feuds are not real. So
Correct.
Don't be surprised if Neil Young and Joe Rogan aren't on the same side and they cook this whole thing up for just, you know, to divide people, because that's what these people like to do. They want to divide people. They want people talking about it. They want people arguing about it. Or the
straw man. Joe is not the one saying drink bleach. Joe is the one asked, again, the PCR. Now, Joe Monaco, Joe Lanier, I got a good one for you to follow this up. Joe's saying, I don't know, but I got the guy in the chair who does, so we're going to sit here and have a conversation. And that's what pisses everybody off, because it's not the soundbite. You're getting the whole conversation from all different angles, perspectives, again, when we talk, we can see each other.
Mhm.
Are you being sincere and honest, or are you being a lying weasel? Because the camera catches that. Much like, forgive me, the CNN reporter who did sit on his show and he just got caught, and then he ran back to CNN and he kept repeating the lie that Joe called out. Your network did this and you were lying, and what did you do? Very
Yeah, no, I hear you. I'm just saying, and it might be just like you say, it might be that at face value. I'm just saying, very few things in the public eye are by accident.
Mhm.
A lot
Yep.
of things are, most things are scripted. They want these things scripted out. So just keep that in mind that it might be that.
Well,
That's all
And
I'm saying.
speaking of
Yeah.
the script, now that the Omicron variant has plateaued, we
Yeah.
need everybody afraid of the new stealth variant.
Yeah.
Hard to detect and probably twice as infectious. Be very, very
Yeah.
frightened. Be
Uh,
scared.
they
You better
said-
order your
yeah.
home test. We're going to give them to you for free. Come on the website and get the test. It's 99% accurate if you're positive. But if it's got a negative result, it's probably only 60 or 70% accurate. Excuse me? How can you make everybody take a test that's 99% accurate, but has a misaccurate rating of 30 to 40%?
Yeah.
That I don't know.
Don't question. You follow the science, young man.
Okay, so Justin Trudeau, the illustrious leader of Canada, this was pretty funny. I think I can give you the
Did
audio.
he show up in blackface again?
Wait a second. Hang on. I think I can.
Who know
All right. This is really good. It's about the truckers. Talk about seeing a guy's face. Wait, let me get it in there.
the
Here we go.
small fringe minority of people who are on their way to Ottawa or who are holding unacceptable views that they're expressing
Trucker strike.
do not
Oh, yeah.
represent the views of Canadians who have been there for each other, who know that following the science and stepping up to protect each other is the best way to continue to ensure our freedoms, our rights, our values as a country. Next question.
I know. Isn't he a clown?
Unbelievable.
He was kind of sweating there for a second,
Can
wasn't
we,
he?
Can we officially change trust the science to trust the paid propaganda? Can we actually change that, or do we have to go with trust the science? That's,
I think they're trying to get rid of anybody who is they. You know, the whole thing is designed to not have critical thinkers. Nobody
right.
opposing
That's right.
viewpoint. Did you hear what he said? Unacceptable views.
yeah.
What, now
yeah.
I can't. The truckers can't have an opinion.
That's
I can't
right.
have an opinion.
Yeah. Yeah. Censorship is at an all-time high right now. It's unbelievable what they're doing right now. Yeah. You are not allowed to question the establishment. You are not allowed to have your own views. You are there to comply. I mean, we are basically turning into Nazi Germany again. You comply.
Oh, no, we're there.
Yeah, I know.
And we're not as a Germanic state. It is global. And I say that because of the situation in Australia. As removed as Australia was in the 70s, and the CIA and the attempted coup in politics there of the time, because Australia's on the other side of the world. Truly. I mean, completely upside down time zones as well as the equatorial line. And yet, voluntary quarantine facilities are concentration camps where the people are not allowed to leave.
Well, it's not voluntary at this point.
But that's,
Right.
again, the government calls
Yeah.
for that. But
He was saying if you haven't had the thing and you take the test, and you have to take the test, and then it's 2 weeks in camp and you have to pay for your food.
Yeah.
and I never understood the attacks that when I did talk radio of whether I was, you're a Zionist or you're not. I'm an Irish Roman Catholic. I'm screwed. When you bring up the Nazis in Germany, the issue you have to be able to bring up not only the Jewish people, but the scientists, the artists, the gypsies, homosexuals, and everything else.
Oh, yeah.
Because the Jewish face got the cover of the anger and the hate of the people who considered themselves Germanic and wanting their pride and their dignity back from a country that was decimated after World War I. So it took a generation for that to happen. But I fast forward to, as I mentioned, Australia and the world they live in. How come nobody's talking about how the people in Israel are having to live right now?
Oh boy, that's a good one, because I don't know why that it's covered up. For some reason.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
I'm not trying to be pro-Israel or anti-Israel, other than
They're people. They're
cannot
people.
a conversation be had about how their government is handling their people, whether in Israel or the occupied areas, and being Palestinian or Arab or Jewish? I'm not talking about
Or Christian.
the heritage. I'm talking about the people of Israel. I'm not talking about $25 in a food box to give. I'm talking about COVID, the pandemic, the vaccine, the booster process, the vax cards, the passports, all of the things that in some parts of the world are considered conspiratorial thinking are in fact blueprint reality right now and are being rolled out to the rest of the world. We are to live with COVID the rest of our lives. We're to live with boosters the rest of our lives. We're to live with passports the rest of our lives. This is the new normal. We have been conditioned into a very ugly place.
Yeah, and keep in mind what they want to do, and they've even come out and said this. They want it to get to the point to where these jabs are every month, or at least every 6 months. So that's where they're moving. And by the way, we saw this coming from the start, and also what you were talking about, Germany and the Jewish people. Keep in mind what they said about them. Oh, we got to quarantine them because what those Jewish people are doing? They're spreading a disease.
They're dirty. You better believe it.
We're seeing the exact same thing. They're doing the exact same thing now to the unveed.
Yep.
Those people need to be put away.
Mm-hmm.
They need to be in a camp. So yeah, they're not changing their tactics, and it just infuriates me that people can't see this. It is so obvious. It's so right in front of you.
Well, the loss of human rights is what's so absolutely shocking. Not even American rights, or anything to that degree. Constitutional rights.
That's where I was going.
Natural law, any of it. But what about just plain old human rights? Telling people what they're allowed to think,
right,
and what they're allowed to do, and where they're allowed to go. I mean, when it changed, the concert thing changed. Do you have to show proof? A vax card?
I know.
Or
I know
a negative test, which is only 60 or 70% accurate.
But I'm not going to walk around carrying tests so I can go to a liquor store or go to
I know, right.
So I can go to a concert or, luckily the casinos in Las Vegas are not doing that. But there are, the national promoters are doing that, AXS and the other ones. You have to show a card of your medical history to go to a concert.
By the way, this whole having to show a card and having to get a shot was based on a mandate from the federal government that turned out to be unconstitutional and ruled by the Supreme Court as such, and they kicked it back. But it doesn't matter. Corporate policy. So corporations are violating the rights of the Americans under this blanket of emergency action due to a pandemic in which they're getting a pass.
It's taking away our rights in the, in the name of, well, of course it is a corporate policy. That's all this is money,
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. It violates the HIPAA laws. I mean, when did our private medical information become absolutely, mandatory that it's now public? I mean, when did this happen? That's such a violation. It's a violation of so many things on so many different levels.
Yeah.
The Nuremberg Code was made so they can't force medical decisions on people. I mean, it's basically a war crime what they're doing right now and getting away with it.
And it's going to take until when did the Nuremberg trials occur, in the 60s? Oh God, I feel like an idiot.
50s or 60s is
it was later.
It
was later. Mm-hmm. But so it'll all come out eventually, I think. But what we can do now is just say no. I mean, as people
Okay.
and say, I'm a
Mhm.
human being. I'm a woman of this planet. You know, I don't have to show you a piece of paper to do something. I'm sure
Right.
that's what they all thought when we had to get a driver's license. But anyway,
The comments 10 days ago on whatever Bill Maher's politically incorrect show is now called, in which a generation from now, people are going to look back at the crimes that were committed, the moral crimes against people. And we still have a whole group of, and backlash, maybe this brings you into the conversation. And Joe, you and I can gang up on backlash again, like we did on chemtrails.
Okay.
But
Oh, good.
Mhm.
Yay.
but
super.
hold on. In the crimes, true high crimes and not misdemeanors, of a group of children who need to be able to see a face and a smile every day, understanding their world can be safe, and they're living like this in constant fear. And in the world of development and children, not talking about child abuse, we are going to have an entire generation of children, because of this microcosmic or macrocosmic experiment. How are we going to deal with them in 15 years when they're rebelling teenagers? I don't know.
Well, they're going to be afraid of relationships. They're going to be afraid of people, because they've been conditioned that every human
Are they
being
going
is
to
a
be
potential.
afraid, or are they going to be emboldened? Or will
Well,
they be the
I think they're going to
opposite?
be afraid, because they've been taught to think that every single human being is a potential biohazard. Everybody's
But
scary.
what
The air you
happens
breathe
when
is
they
scary.
break
Put these
free?
masks on.
But what happens when they break free from the programming and suddenly realize, oh my God.
Some will. Some will.
So a great movie for viewers into the conspiracy keepers. The movie is called Fatherland. It is a offshoot of the Wannsee conference. What if they got away with it? And Germany did win, and the United States lost, and the invasion of France never happened. It's called The Fatherland, and it's with Rutger Hauer. I encourage everyone to watch this movie. So fast forward, Joe, I was talking about, again, with the masks and the kids and the way they looked at the world until they just found out they've all been lied to. And yes, they'll all still defend, but then back to backlash. I'm not throwing you under the bus.
Kind of.
No, because backlash, how you felt when Joe and I ganged up on you about chemtrails, and then how did your mind open up and share that? I mean that honestly, because
Go ahead. Because
I think that's significant for people to hear, and that, look, we're telling you you're lied to, and you're it's going to take whatever, but there's going to be a moment in time where you can't deny it anymore. Whether you're holding your dead child or you're holding a document.
gotcha. I mean, because I mean, in the beginning, you guys all just ganged up. We're like, oh, they're taking away your rights. They're slowly pulling stuff away from you. Like, oh, you guys are so full of crap. Blah blah blah.
But just chemtrails.
Then you started talking
Yeah.
about the chemtrails.
But now they are taking away your rights.
Yeah.
To go, some people, in certain places, whether it's a different country or
Yeah.
I know we've beaten this to death, but you can't go to the grocery store, or
Right.
the truckers can't drive in their truck across the US to Canada and back to deliver their loads unless they have a passport. Okay, you want to cause another major interruption of goods and services.
They're trying to price everything out so we are all living in under the poverty level. But
Oh man, isn't
You
have
will
you been
have
to the
nothing
store
and you will be
lately?
happy.
Oh,
yeah. So back to the chemtrails. I know they started talking about them, and this is probably 10, 15 years ago.
Yeah.
Gotta
Yeah.
be.
Mhm.
And
It's 2005.
and being a pilot myself, I do understand, contrails, ice forming from the heat of the engine, gets expelled, creates ice crystals, and they'll slowly dissipate. And normally that's at about 45,000 feet or higher. And then there was a day they took me back on Scooter's back patio and started showing me the contrails. And I just sat and watched them because I actually saw, commercial airlines cruising altitude of 45,000 feet. watching their contrails dissipate. And then there's these other aircraft that are much lower, and they're spreading, stuff, looked like contrails to me, but then you watch them and they never dissipated, and they would slowly fan out. And then it'd start becoming hazy, and then it was getting a little cloudy. You guys-
Crisscross applesauce.
Yeah,
Right.
I like the ones that are crossed or the
Yeah.
yeah,
Right. The X patterns, right.
yeah. And it actually started, that's, I think, what started me on, still being just an observer. And a lot of times I'll still be like, sucking my thumb in a fetal position because you guys are full of crap. And yet there's always a little bit of truth in there that just actually scares the living bejesus out of me.
Yeah, I think as a culture,
But how did you feel? The feeling again of, wait a minute, that I know this, and I'm the village idiot. By the way, I remember that story being out on the pavement in front of the office on Evans. I don't remember it being on the patio.
That could be. I think we're out on the patio because you were like, oh look, they're spraying again today. And it actually just made me feel a little sick to my stomach, is what it did. Is
cognitive dissonance.
Peek of taking a peek behind the curtain really quick.
So is that where your hamsters came from?
Oh yeah, that's where they started.
Okay, so explaining the hamsters, because when we talk about all these, oh God, my hamsters are running again. When you say that, what does that mean to the people who hear that?
To me, it's just my mind is going in so many different directions of, okay, wait a minute, this is what was told to me, but this is making a little more sense. It just gets in the wheel and goes. It's just making, for anybody listening, when I get my hamsters, it's like my mind is just running, just going on overload is what it does. Because
and plus
it starts making you question so much crap that
everything.
You're right. You're exactly right.
It's a lie. Everything is inverted right now. Everything. Right.
So
in this
from
time
the chemtrails picture that are just and Jackie, you said what? Why did you say the tic-tac-toe?
Crisscross applesauce.
Crisscross applesauce. All right. So this past week in our little show notes messenger, Jackie, can you show the picture I sent of? So when we're talking about the tic-tac-toes or the streaks across the sky, that's one thing. What's with them putting up these symbols in the clouds that appear like skywriting, that appear to be, Joe, I give it to you, and then maybe your families, of Masonic in origin?
Let's see.
Which picture do you want me to dig up?
That one.
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
Okay, so Backlash, you saw it as well. I shared it with all of you.
Oh yeah. Yep.
And so that's different than we talk about the normal chemtrailing, but that was a collage of photographs by another Twitter peep and shared with me, or retweet. Well, however you guys move it on the Twitter. So the God Ball and Masonic in origin, but those are geometric patterns, not tic-tac-toe.
Well, they're both. They do the tic-tac-toe patterns. They do the X patterns. They do Masonic patterns. They do all kinds of different patterns.
I have pictures of every pattern from right here on my patio.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Usually it looks like it's about anywhere from a 10 to 15 mile radius across the sky. So a nice grid pattern.
Oh, I wish I knew that, but you as a pilot would know that. Oh my gosh, I wish you could come here. All right, this is from my house.
Put it sideways.
God, I'm too retarded.
Oh yeah, right.
See the A and the
a little deviation in the course there. We had a drunk pilot. Not a big deal.
Yeah.
McCarran's airspace. No big deal. Jackie, have you gone to the Janet terminal yet?
What?
I told you, just another nondescript terminal. The Janet terminal at McCarran's Airport, Las Vegas, that flies the people daily or weekly out of Area 51.
Oh, yes. Okay. No, I haven't been to the terminal. They don't let you pass the...
Well, you can't go into the parking lot. You can sit out on the street or in the parking lot across the street or either side.
All right. Want me to go now or what do you want me to do?
Right now, go.
You
So,
guys, I have
Joe,
so many pictures. Where is my
all right, so I didn't want to deviate from what Jackie's showing us, but so while Jackie's pulling the pictures, Joe, what does it mean, if anything, on days that they are chemtrailing and not using a geometric pattern versus putting symbols like that? That, I mean, I'm sorry, unless I'm wanting it to be the Masonic symbol and the compass, but what is that? Again,
Well, that's
I
how.
don't know what it is. I know what it's not.
Well,
That's
you have
not
to.
exhaust out of a plane.
it's weather.
Right.
They use it under the guise of weather modification. And what this
Yes,
stuff
they
does will
absolutely do.
change the weather pattern and predict the weather pattern.
Yeah. Right. And you'll notice they do a lot of heavy chemtrailing just before a storm is supposed to come in. Like the day before. They do it on the leading edge a lot of
was my
times because it
favorite.
manipulates the cold fronts, and manipulates the entire
Wait a
pattern
second.
of what the storm is going to be.
Look at that crown thing.
Yeah, right. Right. And that's who these people are. You have to remember they communicate with signs and symbols to each other. That's how they do it, because they don't all know each other. You know, they have followers all throughout the globe. So they do it with their hand signals. They do it in public. That's what they do. Once you understand signs and symbols, this whole thing breaks down. You can see what they're up to and what they're doing.
Oh man, it is so.
Jackie, show the picture of the one I showed of the mountain the other day. One of the meteorologists posted. Give credit to it. Oh, look at this. Because so in the old days, remember, we only had a couple of different types of clouds. But if we're going to rename all the genders, we're going to have to come up with a whole nother, number of clouds. So isn't there we went from 3 or 5 different cloud patterns to now we have 104? And what they claimed that photo was.
Oh, that thing was wicked, wasn't it? Here, I got it.
Yeah.
That was one of the coolest clouds I've seen in a long time.
It was
Backlash in your years of flying. Have you ever seen that?
Only out here in Colorado, because they're coming over the mountain, over the Front Range.
Okay, it's some guy named Matt DeWitt, W-I-N-K Weather. Here comes the
beautiful
picture.
W-I-N-K. We're always winking at you with the all-seeing eye of Horus. Zoom that up a little bit. Click the
This was taken at Eldora.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah. That is unbelievable. Now I want to show you guys this picture as well. Now I was watching this all morning long. There is not a single natural cloud in the sky here. It's a completely overcast day. It's 100% chemtrails. No, this was about 2 weeks ago. And I want you to see this.
Oh, it has a shelf.
Yes, right, exactly. And let me see if I can hold this thing still for you. You can see a little bit of blue sky way back there in the background, but that shelf, that thing is complete chemtrail. That is not a natural cloud at all. It's a completely overcast day just from these chemtrails.
You know how you know is when there's solid lines?
Yes, right, exactly. Right.
And I think that's
not
would be
naturally.
something I would try at some point. Maybe I'll figure a way of doing that. On a day that they're doing chemtrails, I'll bring a camera out and just let it record.
Yes, right, exactly. And you can see you can see it build from the morning. And a lot of times they do it overnight. So a lot of times you can wake up to an overcast sky that's not even.
Attest to that. Yeah. As the night guy, I will tell you that the first thing after COVID in 2020 in March, when it started, for me at night, what was ominous is the commercial air traffic was gone. We went, I mean, the only other time was ATC 0911, those 3 days.
Mm-hmm.
And if you may remember how clear the skies were, planes weren't flying.
Right.
We're just sitting at home for 2 weeks. We're waiting. And then a week later, planes are now moving again. All right. Well, that's nuts. And you can tell, backlash confirmed. Commercial aircraft have mufflers. Military aircraft don't. You can tell the sound at night, even if you can only see the lights. You can guesstimate the altitude, but you can tell the difference between a military aircraft and a commercial aircraft flying cargo. It's an entirely different sound, but was equally as ominous because the world had stopped chemtrailing in the countries that do participate in weather modification. The skies at night were amazingly clear.
Yeah, they were.
There
Yeah.
There was a time for COVID where Denver, Colorado, and slightly north to Cheyenne could see the northern lights.
I'm going to show you guys a picture of what one of these planes. Now, somebody had
Wow.
sent this to me a few years ago.
But
This is a
my
chemtrail.
long-winded story is the military is spraying at night.
Okay, I want to show you something.
I'm watching it.
I want to show you something. This was sent to me a few years ago by somebody who these planes are unmarked, and I want to show you if you can see what some of these planes look like. Okay, do you see that? Do you see that?
Yeah, it's
That,
right there in the back.
The nozzle thing. Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
The
I
nozzle.
know that's a boom out of the back of a tanker. So yeah, that would be large enough, either a tanker or, discharging it.
And this picture was kind of escaped, and I'm really surprised that they. Let me see here if I can get this. Well,
They're retrofitted
to
C-160s, Scooter.
let's
Well,
see.
that's
Or
one.
C-130. Sorry,
Are you
C-130.
talking about Janet?
Well, the modification
Aircraft.
planes, because they
Mhm.
can retrofit them for the nozzles in the back.
Right.
And they are, I can't hear them, but boy, you see them come out of Edwards from where I am. You can see them. It's like clockwork.
Mhm.
And so again, for those planes, they do have muffler suppression systems, aircraft
Yeah.
noise reduction systems on the aircraft
Hmm.
because they are military aircraft being used covertly. Just like
No, I
at
have-
night, the stories are now no longer conspiracy theory. Tens of thousands, approaching now 100,000 plus illegal immigrants have come through the Mexican border under the Biden administration and are being flown secretly at night to other states and being dropped off and being given identities and money, clothing, services, etc., that Americans are not getting.
Can you guys see this?
That's an old picture, but yeah.
No,
Nice
well,
tanks.
it's not
Look
to
at
our
those
not.
tanks.
Hey, Scooter, not to our listeners. It's not old. So
That's
you can
true.
see the tanks on the inside, and this picture was actually on the inside of one of these chemtrail planes.
Look at all those tanks. They
Yeah.
look
That's
like,
just the Notre Dame football kegger.
I was going to say those look like beer kegs.
Hail Boreas. We need one of those for the guard.
And here we go again. You can see some of these nozzles on the outside of one of these
it's an older
planes.
picture, but yeah.
It's unbelievable. And we can't talk about it. You can't talk. You say to people, look at those. Oh,
Yeah, that's what's weird, Joe, is that particular picture is a smaller aircraft, like a G2.
Yeah.
it looks like a private jet, right?
Yeah,
That's a Gulfstream.
that's not military by any stretch. So I don't know how much damage that would do. So
Well, they're not all military. They're not going to say, here we are, we're military jets. These are unmarked planes, and they use different sizes of them. You can see that there's different sizes of them. There's
How many
small ones, there's
commercial
large ones.
aircraft? How many
But they're
commercial
not
aircraft
all
fly on
they're
a
not
daily
all tech.
basis?
They're Scooter. Hold on. They're not all technically military planes. As a matter of fact, the first one I showed you, that was just an unmarked white plane, and they don't have pilots. These things are done, automatically.
Drone.
Yeah.
Drone.
you know what?
That's amazing.
Just so you guys know, I'll give it to you on the larger aircraft. I call BS on the smaller ones. It just that wouldn't
What
have
is it?
enough
Well,
to do with.
explain to me what those nozzles are then.
Couldn't tell you. Those could be atmospheric data where they're.
That's not what they look like. That's not what they look like. These are nozzles that spray, and we saw the inside of that particular plane with the canisters on the inside.
Well, the one with the canisters was a lot bigger plane than the one you showed with the nozzles out the side.
Agreed.
That is a much smaller general aviation aircraft. The other one,
I
No.
believe
There's a
the first
commercial
one out of the back
going.
on the fantail, but not on the side, because I agree with Backlash. That
Well,
looks
that's-
like he said a G2. I'd even give the benefit of the doubt it's a G5.
Well, we're splitting hairs at
I
this
don't know.
point.
Right.
On the last one I showed you, you can't
We
tell
know what they're
kind of
not.
plane this is. You can't tell what plane this is on the last one I showed you.
There's-
It's
on
just
the
a
last one
close-up
you
of the
can
nozzle.
because the windows. The
Well,
windows.
you can't see the whole window.
Yeah,
Backlash,
sure you
you
can.
could
It's
just-
the
you
two,
could
the
just
two
see a
different
part of it.
windows that you're showing.
Yeah.
Show it up. Pull it up again.
Okay.
Okay, so general aviation, the windows are going to be rounded like that versus commercial where they're square. If you pull it to the other direction, you can see the other window and you can see the top of the plane clearly, where on a commercial flight, that you wouldn't see much of the sky. It'd be
Okay.
more,
Exactly.
Okay,
One's
so you're saying
there.
you're saying this is a commercial plane with nozzles on the side? Is that what you're saying?
It appears more civilian, Joe, is what
yeah.
Backlash
And,
is saying.
and to me, those look like they're pushing air through to generate
Needle tubes.
airflow. So to read that versus spraying. The other ones that you showed me, like Jackie did, that's got nozzles going out the back.
Yeah.
That
right.
one to me is more, sorry, this is actually an expertise that I'm kind of good at. So I mean, that particular plane is definitely general aviation.
And my personal, to a civilian just looking up in the sky. So the days where the plane is flying and there's two streaks coming off the tail, or two streaks coming off either wing, one on either side, and then two coming off the tail, how many commercial aircraft are flying with 4 engines? Side by side and tail engines, dual tails.
I don't think there's anything with dual tails.
Okay,
well, no,
so-
you're right. It's very few.
So this first one, so what is that? What is that we're seeing right here?
Okay, that is off of like a KC-135, a tanker that's been retrofitted because the boom on the bottom of it is what would normally go into another aircraft to refuel them in flight. The giant disc on the back, it looks like it's retrofitted to spray.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, but the other one did not show that to me.
Well, it was a close-up, so it didn't show a lot. But once again, these were sent to me by somebody who was out there and did it.
Yeah, the second guy's.
It's hard to say.
Well,
It's hard to say.
this is hair splitting
Yeah.
at this point because there are different aerosol efforts for different purposes. Some are to, manipulate the weather. I mean, geoengineering, is not new. They've been manipulating the weather with chemical use for 100 years since there was flight. And before
Right.
that, it was balloons. Hey, if we squirt this stuff down there, will it form a cloud? I mean, are you guys with me or not?
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. All right. Now, the other thing that they spray is mosquito, stuff, mosquito over
Repellent.
fields.
Yeah.
Right. Remember in Fort Collins, there was a big outbreak of West Nile virus,
Yes.
20,
I do
20
remember
years
that.
ago? My friend
Mhm.
Tom's dad died of that, but they think he died from the medicine they were spraying.
Oh.
And those were off the back of pickup trucks.
Mhm.
Trucks that were parks and recreation, they retrofitted those things and started spraying people
Yep.
with the stuff for the mosquitoes.
DDT.
So we don't know if that smaller plane, what if it was squirting something out or pulling something in. There's different agendas for different purposes, but it's
Absolutely
all
there are.
chemicals that
Absolutely.
are hurting the human being. This is
Right.
the point.
Well, Joe, send me that picture and I'll
Okay.
do some
I will do
digging.
that. I will do that. Absolutely, I will.
I got plenty other pictures on a different device.
We've
If you
only
want
got
more
a couple
pictures.
more minutes, and I think on the next episode we talked about this off air, but being that we're rebooting and we need to go back to the beginning on everything,
Okay.
from the family lines,
Right.
everything, because we always allude to it, but we never have a full 1 hour
Right.
session that we can get into this.
And it'll take a full hour at least
At
to
least.
get into that. Right. So
I think
we definitely need
part 1,
to
2, 3,
commit a whole
4,
show
5.
to it.
All right, just as long as you allow me to present at the beginning of the episode that it doesn't matter
Okay.
the names of the people,
Mhm.
doesn't matter the names of the family. The point is that it's an archonic
Mhm.
energy. Everything is an energy, you guys. And there are beings and things that are going on beyond the spectrum of what the human being can perceive.
Right.
And these energies are generated by other places, other dimensions, other beings off planet, let's say. And these kinds of feelings have infected humans and certain humans. That's how you get psycho killers. That's how you get all kinds of naughty people. And whether it runs in the bloodline, we can indicate that for sure. But the point is that we are being manipulated as nice human beings by an energy that is not nice. That's all I want to say.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's happening from the time we were born, from the time we first go out and get into kindergarten, the first grade. I mean, this manipulation
And
starts.
before we were
Oh,
born
absolutely.
and programmed into history.
We're talking about thousands, if not millions of years. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
They're finding new information all the time that, there's life. Oh, I love this one yesterday. Oh, there could be life on Mars. There was life on Mars.
There is life on Mars. It's
Yeah, life we don't
microbial.
understand, but people like us, humans, I mean, human beings, they
There's life
lived
on
in
Mars
other
currently.
places. Okay, they lived on Mars. If you listen to any of the metaphysical writers or anybody who does any of this kind of work, Mars, though, it got blown up by idiots like us, ruined their entire fauna and everything, so that nobody could live there. Yeah, they're going to find carbon. They're going to find buildings and beings and all kinds of things on Mars. Why do you think they want to go so bad? Because they want to, take out the minerals from beneath the soil and all that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, this is just a fascinating topic, and we'll definitely have to.
Anyways, I'm
commit a
happy
whole
to go
hour
over
to
the
it.
families. I mean, that
Yes,
is interesting
the
to
whole
many,
thing.
many people.
What's that?
I got it on this day in Illuminati history if you want it.
Great.
Sure.
We'll fast forward because today is January 28th. Does February 3rd strike any of you as a date in history?
No.
It will in a
February
minute.
3rd. I can't say it does for me.
In January 1959, Buddy Holly, Richie Valens, J.T. the Big Bopper, Dion and the Belmonts, Frankie Sardo, Waylon Jennings, Tommy Alsop, and Carl Bunch set forth on a 24-day tour barnstorming the Midwest, becoming the most infamous tour of history. Organizationally speaking, the tour was a disaster, a complete catastrophe. The shows scheduled hundreds of miles apart as they zigzagged through one of the deadliest winters the Midwest had seen in decades. In the worst possible transportation available.
A small plane in the freezing
The
cold.
musicians crammed into a drafty bus to perform in small ballrooms and theaters. By February 1st, Buddy Holly's drummer had left with frostbitten feet. It is today, January 28th, that the tour arrives in St. Paul, Minnesota for the St. Paul Winter Carnival. Hail Boreas, hail
boy.
It is a disastrous performance of which their story that I'm not allowed to tell because I wasn't alive. There are very few photographs of the event. Anyway, from leaving St. Paul, Minnesota on January 28th at the hey, Backlash?
Yeah.
Do you remember the prom ballroom?
Somewhat.
On University Avenue,
Yeah.
prom?
Yeah.
Prom Event Center. Did you ever perform in there?
No.
Okay, fair enough. They departed from the prom tonight on January 28th. They then headed to Davenport, Iowa for a concert tomorrow at the Capitol Theater. January 30th, Fort Dodge, Iowa. January 31st, back to Duluth, Minnesota to perform at the National Guard Armory in Duluth. February 1st, Green Bay, Wisconsin. February 2nd, they arrive at the Surf Ballroom in Clear Lake, Iowa. And February 3rd, the rest is history. They depart and die. Hail Boreas.
Now, if they would have reworked that from St. Paul to Duluth and worked their way south, would have been a much easier. Oh, it probably wouldn't have happened.
Except Waylon.
Here's the tour backlash 10 days. January 23rd, Milwaukee. January 24th, Kenosha. January 25th, Mankato. January 26th, Eau Claire. January 27th, Montevideo, Minnesota. Then to St. Paul, and then the rest of the tour. So they were back and forth during these horrible snowstorms. In the worst transportation available at the time to make a buck at all these, again, for the carnival, it was what it was, but these festivals, and how do you get people to come out in the middle of winter? Well, we'll bring in a national act. And so there's your little, hey, here's an on this day in Illuminati history. Because February 3rd, then, with the death of this, in music imagery, now creates a whole nother sound. Don McLean, American Pie, that whole, which is all part of it. What is it? Well, that's the song, The Day the Music Died, right? Backlash?
Yeah.
Waylon was not on the plane, by the way.
No, he actually, he was supposed to be, and he traded with the Big Bopper. is what happened on that flight.
The
Lucky.
performance at Clear Lake on February 2nd was electric. It ended, however, with the unthinkable at the end when they leave the next day. It was Buddy Holly, Richie Valens, JP Big Bopper killed when their plane left, leaving, taking off from Mason City, the municipal airport.
Unknown, or a very, very, what's the word?
Had they been wearing these shirts, they would have lived.
Yeah.
Nice
He was pretty much
shirt.
an unskilled pilot. He'd only had his license for a very little bit of time, and took off in
Inclement weather. Yeah.
inclement weather,
Mm.
and started banking. Didn't know he was banking, and flew it right into the ground.
Well,
The right button on for the year he died.
there you go. Well, it's a terrible tragedy because if you want to get rid of a bunch of really powerful
Oh yeah,
rockers,
that's right. Yep.
let's
Now
When they
backlash,
freeze in
fast
cold
forward to
buses.
when they,
Yeah, exactly, Jackie. You're right.
on a small plane in a snowstorm. Backlash, you want to fast forward your thoughts the morning we found out of the death of Minnesota Senator Paul Wellstone?
That one just seemed very
Say it.
unbelievable.
Suspicious, to say the very least.
Yeah.
Conspiratorial, to say the very best.
Yes,
That perhaps he may not have died by accident.
I would say that. Yeah.
Rest in peace, Paul Wellstone. We just need, like the Pope, you're sick. Hey, take a shower and let's put you in front of a cold window.
Yeah. Your feet in ice water.
Yeah, who
And
was that?
remember who they wanted to throw up back into the public eye with the death of Wellstone? Walter Mondale, and that failed. That gave us Al Franken. And when Al Franken got Me Too'd, who'd they want to prop back up again?
Well, who was it? Was it FDR that said, in politics, you can bet if it happens, it was planned that way.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing's by
I thought
accident.
it was nothing happens by accident.
Well, no, well, the quote was, in politics, he's talking about politics. He's talking about the world of politics. If it happens, it was planned that way.
So listeners, Google that one just to make sure Joe's not pulling that comment out of his backside.
Hey,
You can find it.
This
Trust me.
week's show, the pictures we were talking about, Joe, if we text them all to you, could you put them up with the episode, maybe in the margin?
I think I should be able to do that. Yeah, I think I should be able to do that.
Well,
can definitely
gang,
put those up there. Absolutely.
Unfortunately, it is time that we're going to have to depart this episode. It was great actually seeing all your faces.
Yes.
Oh, too bad we can't say the same.
Yeah,
right.
I look better over the phone. So, and we'll try and figure something out for next week. I mean,
Yeah.
Playoff picks.
Oh.
well, I was kind of hoping for the Bills myself. That was a pretty good game.
Are they going to ram the Rams through?
I think the Rams are in it. I think
That's
you're
what I'm
probably
saying.
gonna see.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, right. Well, the Super Bowl is going to be in LA, so I think they would want a Rams. They want a Rams LA home team Super Bowl. Yeah, I think that's true.
You're kidding. Oh.
Yeah, I think that's what they want.
I think Kansas City goes.
Oh yeah, I think so too. I think it'll be Rams and Kansas City. That looks like what the matchup that they want.
I wonder
and
why,
they've
because
wanted for a long
Kansas
time.
City's so popular. Yeah.
I know, right? Yeah, I think that's the matchup that they want.
Will they do will they do that in SoFi Stadium, do you think?
I think that the fans probably travel pretty well. I'm sure you'll hear a lot of that, no doubt.
Yeah.
And then do you think the media will make hay out of that?
I don't think so.
I don't know.
I don't think so. I think they've got another agenda altogether.
What should viewers be, in case we don't do a show before the Super Bowl? What should the Illuminati, what symbols, and should they be watching again in the halftime show? Because we've always kind of dissected. Jackie's never been around for one of those.
Well, one thing we know they like to do is they like to do predictive programming in their halftime shows. We saw the virus in previous Super Bowl halftime shows with hospital beds and people in beds and symbolism that look like what we see as the so-called virus now. So they do like to tell you what they're going to do. So watch for that. Some
Jackie's hamsters
future
are
event.
running.
Yeah, you could see it in her eyes.
Oh my God. So the weekend last year, the weekend had all that blood and guts and stuff. I wonder
Yeah.
what that's predicting. Remember
Well,
the
yeah.
weekend?
Plus, they've got a lot of what are they rappers this year that are going to be up there?
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, I think they do have that. Yeah.
Look for gang signs or anything else in the.
Or a drive-by.
Yeah. Never know. It is LA.
That's right. I know.
You know,
I
Governor
know.
Newsom pointed out, or Gavin Newsom pointed out, you know, these aren't gangs. These are just groups of folks.
Uh-huh.
Of course.
Okay.
Groups of folks.
Yeah. Well, gang,
Oh, man.
have a great weekend. We will talk to you on the flip side. And everybody else, thanks for another watching of the Conspiracy Keepers.
Now go read
Thanks,
your
guys.
Bible. Bye.
Yes, right.
Hail
Exactly.
Glorious, hail the Lord.
All right. All right.